Each week, we provide you with exclusive avalanche safety report in partnership with our friends at the Colorado Avalanche Information Center. So let's check in with CAIC for this week's report.
Joining me today is Brian Lazar, who is the Deputy Director of the Colorado Avalanche Information Center. Brian, it's always great to see you. Thank you again for being here. It looks like we're getting some more snow, which is a positive thing, but that also can trigger avalanches coming up soon. So what do you recommend? What are some of the protocols that you, for the amount of snow that we are receiving at this time, that can step people through how to take precautions?
Yeah, it's great to be back. Thanks for having us. I do want to really emphasize that we're in a dangerous avalanche period. And I think the best way to illustrate that might be by kind of showing you what's happened just over the last week in the state of Colorado. So this animation kind of walks us through what's been going on in Colorado just since December 2nd. All of these red areas and these triangular icons either point to avalanche watches or warnings. And you can see that over the last week, we've had watches and warnings for a good chunk of the Colorado mountains. You can see the warning areas had spread from the northern mountains to the central mountains as the heavier snowfall moved in that direction. And so this is just what we're coming out of. And right now you can see that there's a lot of orange across the state of Colorado, which means considerable danger. But we have just crossed the line from high danger and avalanche warnings into considerable. So things are really dangerous right now. We're less likely than we were just a few days ago to see a lot of spontaneous avalanches or natural avalanche releases, but many slopes remain primed for a human trigger to come along and trigger some pretty dangerous avalanches. Okay, so here's some avalanches that were triggered by people or ran naturally just over the last week. And this is a really good illustration of the kinds of avalanches you're going to be able to trigger as we move into the weekend and into early next week. The snowpack has got those weak layers buried now about 2 to 3 feet deep, and those are really slow to heal. So we're seeing avalanches grow in size, and they're going to remain pretty easy to trigger through the weekend and probably into the middle of next week. You can see here avalanches are being triggered from the ridgeline. They're being triggered from below. So we need people to give avalanche terrain a really wide buffer.
We are up here on the shoulder of Mount Justice, so 11,300 feet. So we're just getting near the near tree line elevation band. This aspect is just east of due north. We experienced numerous collapses, some of them rumbling and shaking trees, 100 yards away on our way up. So this is still our weak layer of concern. The basal facets are still there, but these are gaining strength, and they're about 1 finger minus now. So again, we're worried about this slab breaking on the November weak layer, and this would cause avalanches 2 to 3 feet thick, maybe upwards of 4 feet thick. And there we go. So that was after a few blows from the elbow. So this is not as bad as what we saw out here last week when columns were failing on isolation or like a single tap from the wrist. It's taking a bit more to get the blocks to go, but the resulting avalanches are going to be much, much more dangerous. We're talking about a stiff 1 finger slab now that is connecting across the terrain features. It's leading to larger rumbling collapses in an avalanche that is, essentially 2.5 to 3 feet thick, could really be one that's not survivable.
So how many avalanches are we specifically talking about within the last week?
Yeah, we've had over 200 avalanches that have been reported to us. So that's just a good snapshot of how active the week was. You can see here we've got 213 avalanches. If we just look at the avalanches that were big enough to kind of bury or kill a person, we still had 76 avalanches that we recorded over the last week. You can see here on the left side on the map that the avalanches were scattered throughout the state as the focus of heavy snowfall moved from the northern mountains through the central and into the southern mountains as the week progressed. And you can see here from this avalanche rows that most avalanches were running on northerly and easterly aspects. So this is why the avalanche forecast looks like it does. We are still dealing with a persistent slab avalanche problem. And as you can see here, the places you're most likely to encounter the avalanches very closely matches the avalanche activity that we saw over the last week. These northerly and easterly facing slopes, avalanches are going to grow large enough to bury or kill a person. And so in all of those areas that were in considerable danger, it's going to require very cautious route finding to stay safe in the mountains through the weekend and into next week. You can trigger avalanches from a distance. You can trigger avalanches from below. So it's really important that you are cognizant of overhead hazards or steep slopes above you. And when you're out and traveling the backcountry, really pay attention to obvious signs of unstable snow. This includes things like shooting cracks and audible collapsing, which makes like a woofing sound. And we had numerous examples of this over the last week. So we're coming out of a lot of avalanche watches and warnings. Things are better than they were just a few days ago, but we're by no means in safe territory right now.
Well, Brian, thank you very much. This is insightful, especially for those people that are going to make the trek up to the mountains. Stay safe and really be cautious with the terrain that you're going to venture out on. Brian, great to see you.
Great to see you. See you next week.
You can always contribute reports and stay up to date with the latest forecast at colorado.gov/avalanche. Enjoy the backcountry and be safe out there.